This is TWiT.
There are a number of reasons why someone might wish to use a VPN service, but the biggest reason is because users want to increase their security and their privacy online. Let's face it, now more than ever, even non-techies have somewhat of an understanding that keeping a low profile online might actually have value. Usually that conversation includes picking a virtual private network to funnel their internet through. And joining us to talk about his exhaustive 4-month research into 32 VPN services is Mark Smirniotis from Wirecutter. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. It's great to get you here today. So first of all, what makes a VPN such a powerful way to increase somebody's privacy online? How do you think it kind of compares to some of the other security and privacy methods from a broader sense?
I definitely think it's one tool of many. One of the reasons this is such a huge piece that we published is when we really started working into it, we found there are a lot of instances where using a VPN can really up your security. When you start talking about privacy, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. There are times when a VPN can help, and there are times when other tools, browser extensions, and ad blockers can be a little bit more effective for, like you said, kind of staying under the radar. You were talking about Facebook earlier on the show, how we control what we're sharing on Google and Facebook and what those marketing profiles are collecting. That goes a really far way too. And I would say people need to have a good understanding of what other information is out there, what they're letting out there before they jump to a VPN as a silver bullet. It's one tool of many, to be sure.
Yeah, and situational as well, because there are some scenarios that make a lot of sense for VPN, like a public Wi-Fi, for instance. Like we've heard it time and time again that you go to a public Wi-Fi, you don't connect with a VPN. I mean, there might be someone there that's picking up on your connection, can actually access your machine as a result, of whatever protections you do or do not have in place. What are some of the other kind of scenarios in which VPN is most useful?
So that's a huge one. That's the one where when we talked to different experts, we actually found some consensus that on public Wi-Fi, even if it's a secured network, a VPN is really useful and really worthwhile. So 100%, that would be the best use. When you start moving up kind of, security experts talk about threat modeling. When you start moving up the pyramid, the next thing you might think about is websites tracking you. And, a VPN will change the IP address that they're going to see when you visit Google or Facebook or Wirecutter or anyone else. And so that provides a little bit of a privacy shield. But again, when you're talking about online tracking, most of what we're giving up is coming from tracking that has nothing to do with your IP address. So it's a little murky if that's really your best course. Mm-hmm. The next layer above that would be people thinking about ISPs and how much is your ISP logging and tracking about you. The answer is they can track pretty much anything they want to. Broad terms of service generally allow them to. In 2013, there was a really good example of AT&T actually started offering customers, they could pay an extra $30 to opt out of targeted ads based on internet activity. And it was a short-lived kind of pilot program. There isn't a ton of evidence right now that any ISP in the US has a huge log of every website you've ever visited, though I think there's probably an argument to be made if they could make money off of that down the line, they probably would. Mm-hmm. But a VPN can protect that data, can protect what websites you're visiting, because all they're going to see is just encrypted traffic flowing back and forth. Then the big one that everyone wants to focus on is always government surveillance. And ever since the Snowden revelations, that's what people always want to run to a VPN for, is all my traffic being sucked up by some government agency. We talked to a couple different experts. One of the ones we talked to is an analyst at the EFF, Amul Kalia, and talking to him about what exactly is going on in government surveillance, what we don't know and what we don't know. these high encryption standards are still considered pretty secure. Sometimes there are vulnerabilities kind of found around the edges. There's some information to suggest that encrypted traffic gets logged and held for later by a government agency that scoops it up, and they hope they can decrypt it later. But the thing we really realized, even though everyone wants to put their tinfoil hat on about government surveillance, there's all this low-hanging fruit, all these, privacy threats and security threats that are more immediate and easier to protect against than government surveillance. So, I went down this rabbit hole. I read lots of articles, and we were doing all this research and all these interviews, and I could certainly get paranoid about it as well. But ultimately, we felt, look, that's not the number one thing people should be worried about when they're looking at whether or not to use a VPN. It's just not the best tool. There's so much else you'd have to protect to really make it worth it if you're worried about that real high level tracking.
I'm mostly worried when I'm traveling and I use public Wi-Fi, like you said, but I'm mostly on my iPhone. You didn't cover any iOS VPNs. Why was that?
Yeah, there's a little hitch in iOS VPN usage right now. OpenVPN is the protocol that kind of all of our experts felt was the most secure and widely used. It was the one to kind of fall back to for the protocol that's initiating all these secure connections. OpenVPN is released by OpenVPN Inc. Under a general public use license. And there's a little hiccup in that that GPL license isn't allowed to be incorporated into apps on the App Store. That means that iOS apps right now are using alternative protocols. Some of them are pretty outdated and not very secure. Some of them are considered more secure and more recent, but you might have some compatibility issues on certain networks. So right now we're recommending that anyone that has an iOS device, you can use the OpenVPN Connect app. It's just a free third-party application from the same group that put together the protocol. And then you can load any profile for pretty much any major VPN provider onto it. Unfortunately, it's not a great app. It's not nearly as good as the native apps on Mac or Windows or an Android phone. But it is really the most secure and reliable way right now to get an OpenVPN connection on an iOS device.
And then what about just in general? You made a couple of like top level picks. One for kind of like the best VPN service based on the ones you tested, and then one for your budget pick. I mean, you looked at a lot of services here, 32 VPN services. What do you recommend?
And that was the tip of the iceberg. So the one that came out on top was IVPN. Of all the things we considered, there's a lot of technical features to start listing off in giant spreadsheets, and we did that. But one of the big things that gets its own section in this guide is trust. You're handing over potentially a lot of data to a VPN provider, and so we kind of started our list with, okay, what major providers is everyone talking about? User reviews, other trusted outlets. What names keep popping up again and again? And then we started looking, in part, thanks to the help of the New York Times information security team, we started looking at what our base level of technology was going to be. What kind of encryption did we want? What kind of protocols? And then we did speed testing on all of them, over 300 some speed tests in total across all different servers around the world. And then we started talking to each company about how they operate and about who was behind them. And what we liked about IVPN, when I was sending questions back and forth with the CEO, Nick Pastel, he's a public guy. There's interviews with him at other outlets. Much of it's not a huge company, but much of their senior staff is listed on their website. And he was really forward with us about, look, this is how we go about keeping our internal system secure. This is what we do to prevent logs from accidentally ending up on a server. And he really was able to answer all the questions that made us go, okay, this is not some anonymous person sitting in their basement collecting all your data. once we got over that hurdle of trust, IVPN, we really like the apps. They're really easy to use. Even if you've never used a VPN before, the default settings are good enough. You can kind of just mash the button and you'll be in pretty good shape. And all the connections that we were testing, they have, I think it was 22 servers around the world, server locations around the world, and all the connections we tested were really good. They were reliable broadband speeds, as opposed to sometimes we would hit a certain location with a certain service and you'd be like on dial-up again. And regardless of how much you trust a service, if it can't perform, it can't perform. So, IVPN had the performance, it had the applications, it really had the trust that we were looking for. And we also wanted one where people could come in and not be intimidated by it. And I like how clear and simple their support section is. It's something that's not common in all the VPN provider support sections. They have simple tutorials. If you don't understand a lot of the jargony terminology, you'll still be able to use the extra settings and you'll be able to customize it a little bit without getting too lost. So that ultimately was the top pick. But it's not cheap. It's $100 a year. And VPN services go on sale a lot, and so it feels like compared to ones you see advertised all the time, that might be a little bit much. So we, like you said, we made a budget pick as well, and our budget pick ended up being TorGuard. Again, we kind of got over that trust hurdle talking to the CEO and looking at what they've talked about publicly and the kind of groups that they support publicly, privacy advocacy. TorGuard defaults to 128-bit AES encryption, whereas IVPN defaults to 256. And we decided to test everything in the default form. We said, look, most people are just going to turn these on and go. So that's how we want to test them without going crazy with the little tweaks. So TorGuard, maybe in part because of that difference in the encryption standard, was almost always the fastest connection anywhere we tested around the world. And we tested at 3 different times of the week to kind of deal with Netflix traffic jams at different times of day. And they were always, like I said, right near the top. The downside is the apps aren't quite as polished. The settings are a little easy to get lost to, and some of the support we felt was a little bit outdated if you're going to look through the tutorials. That said, if you want to save a few bucks, or if you're really comfortable with all the settings, if you kind of fall more into the power user, I think TorGuard will be a really good option.
I think one of the... Let's just put it this way. People who are really like seeking out VPN service, who feel strong about it, are very opinionated, and rightfully so. They want to protect their privacy. They want to feel more secure online. But what that ends up doing, if you're on the other side thinking, I want to get a VPN, but I don't know what to get, you do searches online, you find all sorts of conflicting information. They might have on their site that we don't log or whatever, and then you find a bunch of people saying, well, yeah, we'll check this article from 4 years ago where it was proven that they do log. Like, how do you, as a user, how do you approach this so that you know that you can trust the VPN service that you're actually signing up for? That it isn't, as you point out in the article, some dude in his in a basement wearing a dolphin onesie.
Right. The dolphin onesie, which was courtesy of Swift on Security.
Yes.
Security on Twitter. And I mean, we had long conversations about exactly that of, where
can I get a dolphin onesie?
And there's nothing wrong with dolphin onesies. I have a lot of friends who wear dolphin onesies
all the time. But anyways, what about that level of trust? Like, how do you know that you can trust the VPN service that you're signing up for?
So I think it's on everybody to look past the marketing speak right now, because a lot of them will have big giant letters that make you feel comfortable. But even their privacy policies, maybe there's a little bit of connection metadata that's getting stored away for 30 days or 90 days. This is why we ended up wanting to talk to the leadership and see public leadership listed and accessible to anyone from whoever our pick was going to be, because we felt like that's the best proxy right now for an organization you can trust. If you can't find the leadership, if they aren't out there supporting privacy causes, supporting internet security causes, it's just too hard to know. And one of the things we got into, I got some great information from the Center for Democracy and Technology. Joseph Jerome over there talked to me a lot about exactly this issue of trust and these privacy policies. And the reality is, you do have to kind of decide to trust them because there's not a lot of enforcement. Most marketing and privacy policy stuff can really only be enforced through the FTC for this kind of thing. So if there is some article out there that says, oh, they claim no logging, but in reality they do, it's hard to enforce that. The CDT's brought a complaint against the FTC against one provider, and there's some word about some other ones that have been out there, but that's not much enforcement there, and there's not many options that you can fall back to, especially when so many people are antsy to get a provider that's outside the U.S. They see it as a way of kind of dodging the U.S. information dragnet. If I have a VPN provider outside of the U.S., it'll make my data more private. But the flip side to that is then you also lose pretty much any chance of any sort of enforcement. So if it is somebody untrustworthy running it, that's straight up lying about their privacy policy, you really won't have any options. So again, I think the best thing to do is go back and say, okay, maybe I'm already using the service and maybe I'm already happy with it, but who's behind it? And if you can't figure that out, that's when I would really say you should investigate other options. And there still is a little bit of trust built in there, even if you know who's behind it. There are security experts out there who will say, I don't care if I know who's behind it, I'm still not handing them my data. I'm a little bit more liberal than that when it comes to certain cases like public Wi-Fi. I think it's a fair trade-off to say, well, the more immediate threat on this airport Wi-Fi or this cafe Wi-Fi, it's worth trusting my VPN provider in this situation, especially when I've done the due diligence.
And I mean, there's always the idea of running your own VPN server to route traffic through and taking it into your own hands. I guess that's an option as well. Mark Smirniotis from the Wirecutter. Love all the stuff you guys are doing at the Wirecutter, and this is no different. It's such a great, exhaustive look at something that people are looking up all the time. It's really hard to know what to trust, and thankfully, everybody trusts the Wirecutter. So we really appreciate the research that you did on this, and thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon, Mark.